What is going on, everyone? It is Flipman Dan with another episode of Uncommon Profit. And today we have a very special guest, an Airbnb expert, as you will, who has a great story. His name is Michael Elefante, and we're very pleased to have him on the show. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Dan, super excited to be here. Love learning about your story and the unique, gift that you have here on your podcast, and just helping people out there find creative ways to boost their income. So I'm excited to be on.
So your YouTube channel is really focused on how to generate passive income. And, one of the ways that you found that route was a long journey, but, you've ended up on Airbnbs currently. But tell us a little bit about how you got to this point.
Yeah, so just brief backstory. It's easy for people to assume overnight success, just seeing on YouTube and Facebook, things like that. So about 5 years ago, no money in the bank. I was dating my now wife at the time, and I was working at Dunkin' Donuts and she was working at Domino's. So she was making the big money at $10 an hour, and I was making like $7.25 an hour. And at the time, I was somewhat of a washed up baseball player. I had 1 year of college baseball eligibility left, decided to go back because I wasn't finding luck in the job market. Played an extra year, and then was like, how do I, as a young kid, right? How do I make the most money as quick as possible? And I didn't really want to go to medical school or do some of these other things that some of my other friends were doing, because I wasn't super passionate about some of those, fields of business, if you will. So I ultimately got into tech sales and started side hustling. I worked at a vineyard, pouring wine and cutting cheese for, a year and a half, and worked my way up in the corporate world. But like a lot of people, a lot of listeners out there, I'm sure, come to the conclusion, I don't know if I want to do this for my whole life. So what am I passionate about? How do I stop trading time for money? I stumble across, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, some of these other cool books that really teach, financial education and learning how to buy assets that put money into your pocket and spend less money on liabilities, which in the world that we live in on social media and stuff, it's so easy to get drawn into stuff that we don't have and to spend money on those things. So that led me into real estate. And our path was to just save up as much as possible to buy a traditional long-term rental, buy a little duplex or something and rent it out to long-term tenants. But we found out that the cash flow wasn't super substantial. It was still a good investment. We moved to Nashville from Austin, Texas 2 years ago. And we learned about the Airbnb business because we stayed in a couple of Airbnbs when we were, here looking, interviewing for jobs and things like that. And our neighbor actually works for an Airbnb short-term rental management company. So started talking with her, learned the business, learned the potential returns. Fast forward a year, we finally save up enough money to, put a down payment on an investment loan for an Airbnb property here in Nashville. And things just blew up. And it was awesome seeing, bookings come in, start to make passive income for the first time ever. So fast forward another year to where we are today. We have 3 properties now, and we're under contract for a 4th. And our goal is to be financially free within 5 to 10 years. We didn't really have a hard date set on it, but within 12 months of investing in our first Airbnb property, we became financially free, which was like the most satisfying and mind-blowing experience of our life. But super, super cool, I guess, backstory. And the reason I started from 5 years ago working at Dunkin' Donuts is just to encourage others not to get discouraged with it's not an overnight thing, but it's the long-term game, financial freedom and building wealth, just to free you of your time so you can truly chase what you're passionate about.
Man, from Dunkin' Donuts to retire to 27, that is quite the story, man. And what I love about it is you had the foresight to say, make your first home investment a rental property that is going to pay you money. It seems like a lot of people are going to save up to buy their first home or apartment, including myself, that they're going to live in. So you kind of flipped the script on that.
So actually, we did buy our first home in Nashville a year before our first rental property. But looking back on it, I really do wish that one of two things. I wish we either bought our first rental property before that. So essentially, whatever passive income we create would pay for our living expenses. So it could kind of eliminate our, basically live for free. Or do another strategy known as house hacking, where you could buy a duplex or a triplex or just a single family house with extra rooms and rent out the other rooms or the other units. And by doing that, you could live for free. And for most people, their largest living expense every month is mortgage or rent. So if you can eliminate that, that just helps you save up for your first rental as well. But yeah, I totally wish we would have done one of those two things originally, but I guess lessons learned.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it seems like these days it's just hard for people to save money in this economy with the value of the dollar seemingly getting inflated all the time. Um, what did you start out with? If you can just kind of go into the numbers, if you're comfortable with it, as far as like your rental properties, what did you save? What did you put down? And did you have to rehab the place to get it into Airbnb rental status?
Yeah, all good questions. And before I'll get into the numbers, I'm totally transparent with the numbers. Each investment is unique and different from one another, and each person's situation is unique and different. So, if you hear the numbers I'm going to talk about, don't let that discourage people from out there because people start with little to no money in real estate and Airbnb. You could do co-hosting, all these other strategies. But our first property, we wanted to do an investment loan, which is typically 15 to 20% down. We were lucky to do 15% down to lessen the burden or the barrier of entry. It was a new build, and that property was 495,000. It was listed at. So we put 15% down there. And at the time, we didn't really budget because we didn't really know. We didn't budget accordingly for the furnishing costs. So there's no rehab, but we had to furnish a 4-bedroom house. And we were trying to go a little bit bigger to just have the boosted cash flow. So I actually sold my dream truck at the time, which I had just paid off, a year before that, and used that cash from the trade-in I got to help furnish the house. Which, looking back on it, hindsight, I probably should never have bought the truck when I was younger. I was kind of younger and naive, and should have saved that money, and I could have gotten to real estate sooner. So it cost us around $25,000 to furnish the house, and then we also put in a custom mural, which was a few $1,000s. And the reason we did that is because we like to draw up people's emotions and create an experience. So that mural has made us so much more money than anything else has about the house, because people see themselves there taking photos in front of it and posting it. It's kind of free marketing for us. So all in, it was around 100,000 for the first house. And then each house after that was unique and different. So I'll fast forward to a different example where you can actually do a secondary home loan and buy a vacation house, which there's some specific rules around this. You have to live like 100 plus miles away from the property. Don't quote me on that exact distance, but you can only have to put down 10% and you'll get a favorable interest rate because it's treated more as a primary residence loan than it would be an investment loan. So for people who might be interested, I think that would be a great first way to go about it. And honestly, worst case scenario, if you're not even cash flowing that much, someone else is paying for your own vacation house to go to throughout the year. So it's kind of a cool way to think about it.
Man, that's awesome. Like the little things like a mural is going to really set you apart. That's a good piece of advice there. So in that first home purchase, you said it was about $100,000. So you were, flipping before this and side hustling to get to that amount, or how did you get to that initial down payment amount?
Yeah, so we actually hadn't flipped any houses. For us, it was kind of boots on the ground, just hustling, working our way up in the corporate world. And I was in sales for the past 4 years in tech sales. And I started out making like $35,000 a year, cold calling 100 people a day. So it was pretty brutal. Fast forward 6 months after that, earned a promotion to inside sales, and boosted the income a little bit to 48,000, but I was eligible for commission for the first time. So I thought that was powerful to be able to be in charge of your income to some extent versus just trading an exact amount of time for an exact amount of dollars per hour. So, from there, it was just every year was a focus to boost our earnings, whether it's through side hustling or changing jobs and networking, finding a new role that could pay more or has a higher earnings potential. So we just continued to bounce around. And then my wife got into sales as well, which boosted her income. And we just saved up and side hustled until we had a sum of money that we felt comfortable making that first purchase.
Man, so being in the sales industry definitely pays because sales is never going away, it seems. If you know how to make a sale, you can work in pretty much any industry. So how, for the people in the audience, I know you've done a video on this in prior days, but How can one go about investing in real estate with little to no money?
Yeah, so there's a couple different strategies. I think the number one strategy for people to take advantage of is doing what I mentioned before is called house hacking. And especially if you have not purchased a home, you can take advantage of an FHA loan. And these loans came into existence, not too long ago, backed by the Federal Housing Administration, to basically make housing not more affordable, but a lower barrier of entry. So you only have to put down 3.5% instead of the traditional 10 to 20%. So what you can do is buy a duplex at only 3.5% down and rent out the other half. And whatever rental income you get is likely going to offset almost all of it, if not more, than your actual mortgage cost. So that's an amazing way to essentially live for free or even get paid to live in your own house. So that would be strategy number one. Number two, you could do what's known as co-hosting on Airbnb, which you would basically reach out to investors who have properties today, and maybe they're paying property management companies who charge anywhere from like 20 to 40% of revenue. And you say, hey, I'll manage it for 10%. And all you do is manage the listing for them. So you communicate with guests and cleaners, and you just get basically a commission for the amount of money you help them bring in. So that's an awesome way to also learn the Airbnb space, network with investors, and get in with $0. And that's a cash flow play, right? You can save up money each month from there. And I'll mention one more, which is rental arbitrage, which is also an Airbnb strategy where instead of buying a house, you look at apartments, condos, or single family homes that are currently listed as a long-term rental, which is just a normal lease agreement. You approach the owner or the property manager and say, hey, I'm looking to rent your place, but my intentions are to rent it out on Airbnb in my time. So there's no down payment. There's less barrier to entry as far as credit's concerned. If they're okay with you doing that, then all you have to do is furnish it, and if it needs to be furnished. So there's no down payment, closing costs, or anything like that. And whatever you bring in on Airbnb on top of your monthly rent and other utility expenses is pure cash flow. So that's not an equity play, but those are all cash flow plays to where you can start boosting your income immediately.
Man, that's amazing to look at that from different angles. And I've spoken with some people prior. One YouTuber, Life of Cairo, he is kind of he figured out how to do the rent hacking and the renting arbitrage, where he's living in London right now, rent free, in a 2-bedroom studio that he converted into 3 bedrooms, and 2 of the rooms he's rented out. That's pretty incredible that people are out there doing that sort of thing. If you could give advice for people that are trying to save money, what would be your top tips for people to start accruing wealth over the long haul?
Yeah, I think two things were huge for myself. One is just understanding your own personal finances, and I think a lot of people think about it but avoid it because in the back of their mind they think, oh, I know where my money's coming in and I know where it's going out. But you really don't until you see it on paper or on a spreadsheet, or you can use any app that allows you to do a personal budget. And it seems elementary, but it is really critical to understand your money inflows and your money outflows. So until you can understand where you're spending money, you may realize you're spending, an extra $200 on dining out, or maybe on, beers out with your friends, where if you're able to just reduce it a little bit, and honestly, at the start of each month, plug in, I want to save $300 this month instead of 100. You already count that as an expense. Like that money's saved. And then the way you track it is your money just dwindles down of how much money you have left to spend. So you really just take control of your money every single month. So that's number one. And number two is find ways to invest regardless of what it is. Your money's better off invested, outside of your emergency savings at a younger age and just letting it compound over time. So whether that's investing in index funds or, a Roth IRA, just letting your money sit somewhere where it can grow. Because as you mentioned before, if the government is going to print us, to wealth, print money constantly, it causes inflation. And I think that one of the biggest, factors with, unfortunately, I mean, it makes the rich richer and the poor poorer when money is printed, because rich people typically own assets, and assets and commodities, go up when there's an increase in inflation. And it makes people who don't have as much money, who are, working a normal job, they still have to pay for the normal expenses, and those things go up. So while their money is not increasing, the things that they pay for are increasing. So the way you can hedge that is by investing in the stock market, investing in real estate. So I say index funds, or like you can apps like Acorn or Robinhood. You can go in and just kind of trickle money in, and just let it grow. Even if it's just for a few years, it's better to have your money in today than to wait.
It's so true, man. And you mentioned Acorns and Robinhood, two kind of pillars of my personal, saving and investing tools, I guess, if you will. What are some of the other apps that you leverage that either you'd like to mention that save you time or save you money?
Yeah, so those are great. This is really going to be probably catered toward Airbnb because I want it to be as passive as possible. So leveraging apps that help automate communication with guests and cleaners and pricing and stuff like that is huge. So Airbnb actually just brought into their application automated messaging for guests. So you can basically set up canned messages that, so as soon as someone books, that's automated. Hey, it's Dan here. I'm your host. Thanks for booking. Here's info about the house. So take it one step further. If you manage listings on Airbnb and VRBO, there's two apps called Smart B&B and Your Porter. And they're basically the same thing, but they integrate your listings into one calendar so you don't get double booked. And they also automate messaging, and they will actually automate calendar syncs with your cleaners. So you don't even have to worry about telling them when to go. They just show up. So that helps automate everything. And the last one I'll mention is called Price Labs. And the biggest time suck for me with Airbnb was figuring out how to price our houses per night, time of year, day of week, and adjusting that based on demand. And it was kind of hard to figure out, well, what's the demand in the area other than how much I'm getting booked personally. So that will actually do a pull from Airbnb and all these other data points. And you have customizations you put in, but it will auto adjust your pricing intuitively based on the demand in the area. And it'll even, color code the calendar based on what days people are searching for and booking. So that is awesome. That saves so much time and honestly boosts the occupancy and how much money Airbnb hosts are able to make.
Man, that's amazing. How much do these apps cost you?
So Your Porter and Smart B&B, those are different. It's about $7 a month for Your Porter and I think $18 per month for Smart B&B. And it goes down with the number of listings you get per listing. And Price Labs is only $20 a month. So if you're bringing in several hundred, if not thousands of dollars on Airbnb, that saves you like 90% of your time is saved just from those apps. So it's worth its weight in gold.
Man, so time savers, and I'm sure it's a drop in the bucket, when you look at your final profit at the end of the month. So what are some of the pieces of advice that you would give to someone starting out in the Airbnb space that you would want them to do by themselves first to kind of understand the process rather than outsource it? Is there some things that are valuable to do yourself to kind of understand how that works?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think so. One of the things you have to outsource is cleaning. I would not recommend cleaning your own place unless you live in the unit and you're renting out a room in your house and just an owner occupied situation. But I think it's important to do a full clean and turn by yourself, especially if it's a same day turn. It's tough for those cleaners to get in there and make sure a place is looking spick and span and not knowing what you're going to walk into, because some guests leave it messier than others. So I think cleaning it yourself at least once or a few times to know what they have to do, and also knowing where everything is so you can actually communicate and help your cleaners in a pinch. So that's one thing for sure. And then maybe the other thing too is just managing your listings without using those automation tools. And then maybe for a month and then switching to those automation tools. I waited way too long. I think we waited 9 months to onboard those tools because I'm like a penny pincher and a little frugal. So I was like, man, I could just save an extra $30 a month on each listing. Great for us, right? But like I said, it's worth its weight in gold. So I think just doing some of those tasks on your own to start, you'll learn to value like your cleaners and some of those automation tools later down the road.
Right. So in Nashville, I know it's like a party city. I think the last time I was there was for a bachelor party. So is there any lessons that you learned or mistakes you made over the prior year with Airbnb that you would give yourself advice to or new people advice to maybe do differently?
Yeah, I think two things. One is if you're not filled, to the occupancy you want, don't tank your prices to like a bare minimum just to try and get it booked. Because what will happen is you may get a local person looking to throw a party and they're disguising themselves as someone coming from out of town. And we've had that before. And honestly, we've only had that issue once COVID hit, and we had to lower our prices to try and accommodate basically like a short-term lease, like a 1 to maybe 6 week stay. So we tried to make our prices competitive. But what ended up happening is we had a couple local people book it saying that they were there, visiting family, and they ended up throwing a party, which is completely against Airbnb rules and our rules. And we could charge them to get paid out on it, but it's not worth the hassle to lower your price to that point. So in addition to that is screening guests. So just having your automated instructions, hey, what are you in town for? Are you celebrating anything special? Just to kind of get a better feel for the type of people that you're catering toward and you're getting in there.
So you spoke earlier about the mural. What are some of the personal touches that you just kind of mentioned it. What are some of the personal touches that you do to make guests kind of feel welcome?
Yeah. So I'll start with the first question, like around the mural. If you look, and it sounds like you've been on Airbnb before, right? In Nashville. If you look in Nashville or in the mountains or by the beach and you start scrolling through, you're kind of overwhelmed with how many properties are available to book. And for us, I don't want it to be a race to the bottom with price. So being able to create one or two things that are really unique about the property that stand out. Because on Airbnb, you get the one photo and a description to get a click. And then you get 5 photos on the splash page in your description. And then at that point, someone's hooked emotionally to some extent, and they are like, okay, I could see myself staying here. So we want to draw to their emotions. So with the mural, like you said, you were here for a bachelor party. Nashville is bachelorette capital of the world. So we would love to cater to bachelorettes who are looking for a unique experience and can have fun photos, make memories, but are also willing to spend a little bit more money than an ordinary trip because it's a special occasion. So by putting that mural in, create the unique experience, be booked more, but we're going to be able to make more money as well. So it's like a win-win-win situation. Special other areas you could do that with are like creating unique outdoor spaces. So even just something as simple as string lights or a fire pit. And you really just want people to see themselves staying there before they ever actually click book. And then other unique touches is just kind of creating some level of modern space where it's not someone's ordinary home, because they don't want to go book another place that just looks like their apartment at home. They want to go book a place that feels unique. It feels like they're having an experience and on vacation.
Man, all great pieces of advice. So you got a lot of great things happening just in this past year. 2021 and beyond looks great for you, Mike. What do you see happening in the future for your financial freedom and just in life in general?
Yeah, so I think a big goal for my wife and I is we'd like to travel some. She's traveled all over the world. She's traveled with study abroad and with her mom and stuff, but I haven't traveled quite as much. So we do have a travel bug a little bit, or we've gotten bit by the travel bug per se. We'd love to be able to travel around the U.S. and see like the national parks, maybe do some international trips once travel becomes a little bit normalized again. And after that, what we want to do is take our experiences around the U.S. and really figure out where we want to plant roots and start having kids and grow a family. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1, like where do we want to live? And by traveling, we can kind of find, narrow it down, because we're not really sure if Nashville's like our forever home or if we want to look at other places. So I think by doing that, it might give us a better understanding of where we want to live. And then from a financial perspective, we'd like to continue to scale with Airbnb. I think we really enjoy it. I fell in love with YouTube. I didn't think I would, because I'm super comfortable talking in front of a camera. I'm getting more comfortable, and growing that channel and just helping other people who have similar interests dive in and just give them the knowledge that maybe they're not finding elsewhere. Because it can be hard and pretty nerve-wracking learning something new, whether it's starting a podcast like yourself, or buying your first rental property, or your creative financing around things, or investing in the stock markets. So ways that I can provide value for other people. And why I love YouTube, it's a free resource for people to learn. Like, I learned how to change light bulbs on YouTube a couple of weeks ago. Like, it's the best place, along with podcasts, to learn information that you wouldn't ordinarily learn like in school growing up. So by doing that, I can eventually hopefully monetize on YouTube. I haven't been able to yet, but that's kind of a secondary thought. I want to make sure I provide value first. So those are like the two key things, kind of the travel, figure out what's next for, our family, and then scaling and growing those other, lines of business or passive income.
Great, man. So how has the YouTube journey treated you so far? I mean, I think you're pretty close to 1,000 subs. I hope we can get you past that in the coming days.
Yeah, that would be amazing. That was like my first biggest goal. It took me probably 8 months to get 100 subscribers, and in the past 3 months, I've gotten over 800. So it's starting to. I can see like the trajectory and compound, and I've taken it more seriously. I've listened to people who comment and say, "I'd love to hear you talk about this," or "Hey, here's some constructive feedback." So I love interacting with people who are interested in the things I'm talking about and learning from them and being able to provide better content moving forward. So um, yeah, I would love to see it grow to 1,000, and then I have some ambitious goals for 2021 to grow it like well beyond that. So we'll see how it goes, but it all comes down, as you know, like providing good content that people want to consume, and it helps them in their lives. So that's step number one. I think everything else will fall in place.
Great, man. Well, I appreciate you, coming on and sharing your depth of knowledge on these great topics. Is there any final thoughts that you have for our our audience today?
No, I think just don't set your goals too small. I really don't think. I think we as people limit ourselves just in our own heads. Don't let other people discourage you. It's really easy for people to cast stones, but um, just whatever you're passionate about, chase it. And if you have ambitious goals, don't let yourself, especially, stop yourself from taking that first step, because that first step's the hardest, right? As you know, with all aspects of life, right? Whether it's fitness or finance or whatever. So I think that would be, just general advice.
Great, man. Well, appreciate you coming on, and if you could just let everyone know how they can find you, that'd be great.
Yeah. So on Instagram, TikTok, it's Elefante6. And on YouTube, you could just search my name, Michael Elefante. That's Elefante. And then for those that are seriously interested on Airbnb stuff, I do have a Patreon account as well, where I do way more in-depth videos. I share investment templates and all sorts of stuff. And that would be at patreon.com/Michael Elefante. So if you guys have any interest in checking it out, I'd love to hear from you. But thank you so much for having me, Dan. This has been fun.
Thank you so much, Michael, and have a great day, man.